Ava hadn't slept in 31 hours. Her hands were shaking so bad she had to double-tap, each key like she was typing Morse code from a lifeboat. The backend was hemorrhaging memory, like a stroke victim, Reddy's queues backing up into infinity, and staging logs flashing red like a Las Vegas brothel sign. Meanwhile, every other leader in the company was blackout drunk in Austin, tagging Instagram posts with #SXSW vibes, while the platform they built on her spine was moments from collapsing in front of a $14 million client. She was in a server room lit by flickering fluorescent lights and desperation, hoodie soaked in sweat, coffee cold, and untouched. Jenkins kept failing silently. The memory leak wasn't in the usual suspect, wasn't even in the containerized microservices. No, this little bastard was tucked like a tick in a dependency they imported 6 months ago during refactor week, when some product genius decided they didn't need backend QA anymore because unit tests are enough. She found it, patched it, hot-swapped the container with a custom, per build she shoved through a shadow CI/CD pipeline she wasn't technically supposed to have access to. She didn't even test it in staging. There wasn't time. Pulse throbbed in her ears as the screen blinked. Builds went green, CPU stabilized. At 9:13 a.m., the client demo began. Everything held. No crashes, no latency spikes. No one even knew how close they came to total ruin. By 11:06, the exec team stumbled back into Slack like frat bros home from a keg run. One VP wrote, "Great job, team," in general chat. The CEO, Miles, his $900 sneakers and chin that never quite stopped smugging, called Ava into a glass conference room and sat backwards in the chair like he thought it made him relatable. "You really came through," he said, twirling his AirPod case like a fidget toy. "But we've been talking. You've got good engineer energy, but not founder energy, you know?" Ava blinked. "I'm sorry." He leaned forward, elbows on knees. "You're essential glue, duct tape. We're looking for visionaries at the cap table. Your metrics just aren't founder tier." That was the moment something inside Ava stopped bleeding and started sharpening. Oh, and hey, before we go any further, if you've ever been duct taped into invisibility by some smug tech bro with a marketing degree and mom-funded startup, maybe hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to hit my first 10,000 subscribers, and unlike Miles, actually value the people doing the work. Okay, back to Ava. She nodded like a good little drone, like she appreciated the feedback. But the conference room glass was clean enough to reflect her face back at her, and she didn't recognize the woman staring back. Not anymore. She walked out silent, didn't throw a chair, didn't slam her laptop, just returned to her desk like someone rewinding a murder scene, rewatching every slight, every uncredited commit, every product launch where she got a mug and someone else got stock. The gratitude, vapor, the equity, a myth. The only thing real in that place was the code, and she knew it better than anyone. That night, while HR uploaded SXSW photos to LinkedIn and Miles bragged about scaling pain, Ava stayed late, quiet, calm, and started cloning the monolith, bit by bit, service by service, because if she was just the glue, she was about to find out how fun it is when glue decides to melt. They called it an alignment meeting. You know the type, everyone pretending to give a damn about company culture, while their eyes scream, "Just let me get back to my ticket queue before someone slacks me again." Ava sat quietly, fourth row from the front, the only woman in her immediate radius, not dressed like a Patagonia ad, wondering how long she could hold in the urge to scream. CEO stood at the front of the room in his standard issue startup hoodie and a grin that came factory installed on trust fund babies. "We're thrilled to welcome a new head of product," he beamed. "Some of you already know him. He's been shadowing our teams for the last quarter. Let's give it up for Kyle." And out struts Kyle, 32, MBA, hair like a cologne commercial. He was the guy who asked Ava in his first week if GitHub could do PowerPoint exports. Ava had trained him, personally, showed him how the backend interfaced with the feature flags, helped him debug his first commit where he tried to filter user types by their email domain. She even wrote the first draft of the product roadmap he was now holding in his soft, uncalloused hands like he invented gravity. And we're excited to say, Kyle's also received a generous stock option package, Miles added, clapping with that punchable rhythm startup CEOs seem to learn in private school. Ava didn't clap. Her face didn't move. Her insides did. Her roadmap was now Kyle's vision. Her 2 years of technical debt warfare, Her overtime-bought knowledge of that spaghetti stack, her line-by-line crawl through every undocumented API call, that was all erased with a handshake and a vesting schedule. She stood to leave, needing air, past the open hallway to the snack bar and paused just outside the glass wall of a side room. Inside, Miles, laughing with Kyle and 2 board members. She didn't want to eavesdrop. She tried not to listen. But then she heard it. "She's the duct tape," Miles said, chuckling. "Useful, not investable." They laughed like they were doing her a favor, and that was it. The second gut punch. The first had made her bleed, this one. It froze the blood solid. Ava went back to her desk. No tears, no dramatics, just methodical breathing. Every keystroke from here out was war prep. She slid in her earbuds, opened a private terminal, and started syncing their monorepo into a ghost repo, mirrored, firewalled, tucked behind a chain of private keys and disposable emails. Her commit messages were vague, her scripts anonymized. But the logic she rebuilt in that repo, flawless, modular, elegant, almost poetic. By 3:17 a.m., she'd registered an LLC in Delaware. By 3:23, she owned the domain. By 4 o'clock, she had a GitHub organization and infrastructure forked to scale. She called it Spectre Systems, because every great haunting needs a name. While the company slept off cocktails and self-importance, Ava became her own founder. Not with words, not with pitch decks, with code. Because they wanted vision. She'd show them what it looked like when duct tape learned how to build bombs. By the following Monday, Ava wore her new skin like Kevlar, quiet, polished, even helpful. If anyone noticed how serene she looked sipping cold brew while Jenkins piped failure logs into her private Slack channel, they didn't say a damn thing. After all, she was just the backend lead, legacy wrangler, tech debt whisperer, the human lint roller for everyone else's code crimes. When she proposed a modular refresh of our legacy services for greater scalability, everyone nodded like she'd offered free stock options. Miles called it founder-style initiative. Kyle nodded thoughtfully while Googling what a reverse proxy was. She rewrote the billing service first. No one questioned it. Billing always broke on Fridays. She wrapped it in a proxy module, one she privately hosted under her own AWS org. It relayed everything flawlessly. No latency, no flags. Except now, every request passed through her logic first. Then came user authentication. Then file storage. Slowly, deliberately, she split monoliths into microservices, and each one got its own wrapper. Externally, they looked like optimization. Internally, they were encrypted backdoors into her private infrastructure, Spectre Systems humming quietly beneath their noses like a second set of lungs. Her commits were immaculate. Every pull request came with documentation that looked official, boring, and just irritating enough to discourage deep review. She commented her own code like a distracted intern, typos, vague notes, things like fixes flow for user edge cases. No one wants to peer into that mess. It's the software engineer's equivalent of leaving laundry on the chair. People just walk around it. The company Slack lit up daily with praise for our incredible backend stability. I'll bless his linked-influenced soul, wrote a Medium post titled "Why Clean Code is the New Culture," and tagged Ava without reading a single line of what she'd done. At one point, the CEO forwarded the post to the investor thread with a line that made her smirk so hard she had to mute her mic. "We've hardened the backend. Bulletproof now. God bless his trust fund." But here's the thing about ghosts. They can only haunt if no one's looking too closely. Ghosts make noise. 2 weeks in, a junior dev named Mateo flagged something weird. He'd been debugging staging and found what looked like an external ping call during user onboarding. It routed through a domain he didn't recognize. He dropped a note in hash backend issues. "Hey, getting some unexpected headers from user SVC. Looks like third-party relay. Anyone know what this is?" Ava answered within minutes. "Yeah, that's part of the audit logging layer we're scaffolding. Supposed to be abstracted later. Ignore for now. Thumbs up Mateo liked the message. No one else replied. That post got buried under pizza party polls and Friday dog pics. And Mateo, poor guy, got reassigned to QA automation after saying "rejects gives me migraines in a stand-up." Ava watched it all unfold like a tarot card spread. Ambition, ignorance, misplaced trust. She wasn't angry anymore, wasn't even hurt. She was patient. Because when you're building a guillotine out of source code, the most important thing is making sure the blade drops silent. The email subject line read, "Series B, Final Diligence Packet Confidential." Ava clicked it with the same deadpan curiosity she reserved for anti-harassment trainings and Kyle's Medium posts. She wasn't supposed to be CC'd, but Miles had a habit of looping her in when he needed a favor, not a voice. This time, he wanted her to validate some backend metrics before the pitch deck went out to the VC bloodhounds. She scrolled past the front-loaded nonsense, market fit projections, vertical synergy matrices, Kyle's sunlit headshot under a banner that read Architect of Scale. Then she saw it. A bullet point in bold, listed beneath Technical Innovation Roadmap, Scalable Refactor of Backend Infrastructure, led by product head Kyle Langston, built from legacy monolith into distributed microservices. She blinked once, twice, laughed, not out loud, more like an exhale that tasted like blood, led by Kyle. As if that man could even spell container orchestration without a lifeline. It wasn't just theft, it was performance art. Kyle hadn't written a single line of code in over a month, but here he was, asking in credit for Ava's surgical re-architecture like he birthed the dam system out of his mediocre pores. But Ava didn't rage. She didn't stomp or slack a lawyer or march into a meeting. She simply opened the repo. Nested deep inside her wrappers, behind a low-traffic call path in the user verification module, she embedded what she called a Spectre signature. A passive flag, harmless until toggled. And when it would begin piping reroute logs, ownership timestamps, and licensing headers into a readable file, encrypted with a key held by her Delaware C Corp. She didn't even obfuscate it that hard. She wanted it to be found, but not until it was too late to spin the narrative. After all, investor due diligence doesn't just look at product. They look at provenance. And once they flipped that flag, every call routed through Spectre systems would light up like a crime scene under UV. Timing had to be perfect. Activate too early and they might contain it. Too late and she'd miss the investor window. But just before signing, when the lawyers were locked in, decks printed, and term sheets loaded, that's when ghosts come to dinner. Ava spent the rest of the day humming softly, tapping her fingers along her desk in a rhythm only she understood. She fixed 2 bugs Kyle reported, both user error, pushed a silent update to the deploy pipeline, added a comment no one would read. / legacy flag, deprecated in production, triggers audit cache if true. Then she logged out. That night, she walked her dog, cooked herself dinner, watched a nature doc where a leopard dismantled a baboon colony in silence, one by one. She sipped wine while the narrator whispered about patience and precision. And when her phone buzzed with another Slack ping from Miles, need you to polish backend slides for tomorrow's investor preview. He didn't reply, she just smiled. They wanted to steal the bones of her system. Fine, let them build their castle on haunted ground. The meeting invite said quick sync, but it smelled like a firing before she even clicked join. That scent, burnt coffee and bullshit, hung in the digital air. Ava entered the Zoom room to find Miles already there, buttoned down, unbuttoned just enough to signal founder vulnerability, flanked by the head of HR. Looked like she was legally prohibited from blinking. Ava, hey, Miles began, voice syrupy with fake empathy. Listen, first off, your work has been incredible. Seriously, what you've done with the backend? Insane. We wouldn't be here without you. Then I assume this is a raise call, Ava deadpanned, sipping her coffee like it wasn't 3 seconds from scalding. Miles chuckled, missing the sarcasm by a mile. Well, no. Actually, we're doing some structural realignment ahead of the Series B. Tightening expenses, simplifying roles. And with the platform finally stabilized, thanks to your great work, we realized a lot of what you do has now been, systematized. Ava blinked once. No expression. He continued. So we're winding down your contract. Gonna sunset it by end of the month. HR spoke up, finally allowed to exist. You'll vest 50% of your equity cliff. That's fair considering the timeline. Ava nodded. One slow, precise motion. Thank you for the opportunity, she said it calmly. No venom. Just enough warmth to make them think she was going to slink off and cry into an Indeed tab. Miles looked relieved, like he'd dodged a tantrum. What he didn't know, Ava had already built the guillotine. This was just her signal to pull the lever. That night, after feeding her dog and queuing up a jazz playlist titled Revenge, but classy, she opened the admin panel to Spectre Systems. License lock, armed, reroute detectors, live, failpoint seeds injected. She toggled the first lock. Nothing dramatic, no explosions, just a little friction in the gears. The next morning, Jenkins started failing builds. Random services lagged in staging. Webhooks timed out. The internal dashboard loaded like it was running through molasses. Ava knew they'd blame their recent optimization sprint, the intern who kept pushing changes from his hot desk at WeWork. In Slack, people started noticing. Anyone else getting weird deployment lags? Why does user SVC throw a 504 every third login attempt? Kyle tagged DevOps. Can we roll back to stable? Ava resisted the urge to reply define stable, Kyle. She just watched the feed from her dashboard, each failure silently routed, cached, logged. No alerts were thrown, just the system quietly eating itself like a python swallowing its own tail. Spectre's passive audit flag still remained dormant, but the license lock, that was alive now, fully legal, fully documented. By Friday, 4 features were disabled by accidental regression. Customer support calls doubled. A sales engineer demoed the platform to a hedge fund, only to watch it crash mid-pitch. Ava's inbox remained untouched. They had cut her out, but they'd never asked what she owned, so she let it run. Let the cracks deepen, because the real magic trick wasn't breaking things. It was watching everyone pretend they weren't broken yet. It started like a bad hangover, manageable, but deeply shameful. One of the sales reps DM'd the CTO during a live demo, something about a login loop on the demo tenant. Screen had frozen on a verifying credentials spinner for 7 straight minutes before the prospect politely said, maybe we reschedule. That alone wasn't a red alert. Tech hiccups happen. What didn't happen until now was a rollback loop retriggering after a completed deployment. That was new, and no one could trace it. Every log trail led into a null tunnel like someone had swept behind themselves with a digital broom. Mateo, the junior dev, when Ava had sidestepped back in part 3, finally had enough. He noticed that half of their traffic metrics were mysteriously misaligned with expected outputs, and staging logs, full of headers with timestamp discrepancies. The breadcrumbs were subtle but weird. He bypassed Kyle entirely and took it straight to the CTO. Now, the CTO wasn't a fool. He had once built an entire e-commerce stack in Clojure for fun. A little insufferable, yes, but sharp. It took him less than 10 minutes to realize the company's microservices weren't just lagging, they were deterring. Whole clusters were routing through a relay service that didn't belong to their AWS org. It had started as a convenience layer, or so they thought. Now it was the operating spine of the platform, and they had no idea who held the keys. The CTO pulled every engineer into a panic call. Cameras on, eyes bloodshot. No one knew who set up the Spectre relay. No one could contact Ava. Miles tried her cell. No answer. Tried Slack. Message unread. Tried her personal email. Bounce back. Is she ghosting us? He hissed to HR. They lit up the hash war room channel. Pings flew. Every engineer digging into every service wrapper. People opened files they hadn't touched in months. And that's when they found it. In the DevTools panel, buried under a cascading error log in the admin dashboard, was a footer element they'd never noticed before, maybe because it rendered in white-on-white 9px font, styled in a way that made it look like debug filler. But it was there. Spectre Systems LLC, licensed runtime shell v1.04c. Jordan's silence hit the war room like a slap. Ava, Jordan, they're Ava. Miles stared at the screen like it had insulted his lineage. She named it after herself. He stammered. Why the hell didn't anyone catch this? Mateo mumbled, I flagged something weird months ago. Got dismissed. The CTO just sighed and closed his laptop. We're not running our platform. Investor calls started to fall apart by the afternoon. One firm dropped with no explanation. Another asked pointedly, can you confirm all your infrastructure is internally owned? Miles lied. They didn't believe him. That night, an anonymous Medium article popped up on a VC watchlist newsletter. It wasn't signed, but it was titled, The Phantom Founder, a case study in code ownership and startup hubris. The last line read, sometimes the most dangerous person in the company is the one you let go quietly because you thought she wasn't visionary. Ava watched it all unfold from a bar 2 cities over, sipping a whiskey sour, phone face down. No texts, no emails, just the low, warm glow of poetic consequence. She didn't need to say a word. The silence was the message. By Monday morning, the company lawyers were in full court press mode, their emails sounding like they were written by someone halfway between a hostage negotiator and a psychic begging for absolution. We're hoping to have a constructive dialogue regarding recent IP clarifications. Please, let us know a convenient time to connect. We'd like to resolve this amicably. Legal team is committed to de-escalation and partnership translation. Please don't sue us into ash. Ava didn't respond. The next day, the CTO resigned. No notice, no farewell message, just a short Slack ping at 4:13 a.m. Effective immediately. I suggest an infrastructure audit. His LinkedIn was updated by noon, exploring new opportunities, open to advisory roles. Inside the office, panic had turned into performance anxiety. Miles kept holding alignment huddles where no one aligned. Kyle tried to look busy by standing near whiteboards and drawing clouds labeled innovation in red marker. But then came the leak. Ava never found out who did it. Maybe a disgusted engineer. Maybe a pissed-off junior tired of being ignored. Either way, the document landed in the inboxes of 3 VCs and one highly caffeinated Substack writer. Internal infrastructure review. IP risk assessment, confidential. It confirmed what Ava already knew, but now it had corporate letterhead to prove it. Approximately 60% of core backend infrastructure is currently routed through external proprietary services registered to Spectre Systems LLC, Delaware Corp. Ownership traced to Ava Jordan. License terms unclear. Liability high. Substack post titled it, "Startup Held Hostage by Its Own Backend." The story went viral on Hacker News before lunch. That afternoon, a proper email arrived, not from Miles, from counsel. The subject, licensing resolution proposal urgent. The tone was different now. Stripped of fake pleasantries, direct, borderline begging. They attached a spreadsheet Ava had prepared for this exact moment. It had been ready for weeks. She didn't even open it, just forwarded it to her attorney with a smile. The lawyer replied to the company on her behalf. Please see attached fee table for runtime licensing of Spectre Systems modules currently in production use. Licensing fees are retroactive to the first unauthorized deployment per U.S. intellectual property statutes. Continued use without compliance may constitute willful infringement. We have also attached routing logs and usage records, which can be submitted for formal discovery if needed. No threats, no insults, just clean, surgical execution. Inside the company, Slack leaked like a cracked hull. How bad is it? I heard she owns the API gateway. Why is there a footer on our login page that says Spectre 1.04 now? Miles stopped showing up on video calls. When he did speak, he sounded like someone trying not to vomit in front of investors. Still, Ava didn't respond. She let it marinate, let them twist. 3 more days passed. Ava changed nothing. She just watched, quiet and calm, as the vultures circled and the carcass started twitching. Empowerment didn't come from vengeance. It came from the silence after someone realized they can't unburn the bridge, and the person holding the fire starter doesn't even need to look back. The board call was set for 9 a.m. sharp, but Ava logged in at 9:12, no camera. No mic, just a black tile marked A. Jordan. On the other end, it was a funeral in suits. Miles looked like a parody of himself, collar wrinkled, voice just a half step from cracking. The general counsel kept adjusting her glasses like they were fogged with shame. Kyle was nowhere in sight. They danced around it at first. We want to turn a page. No hard feelings. Let's align on a productive way forward. Then came the ask. Miles leaned forward, arms steepled like he was pitching to an angel investor. We'd love to bring you back in. As a transition lead, full cap table integration. Equity package, clean slate. Ava unmuted. No, she said, just that, clean, surgical. Miles blinked like he'd swallowed a golf ball. Sorry, just to clarify, that's a no to equity or a no to. I'm busy, she cut in. But I'd be happy to license it back to you. 6 figures a month, prepaid. Contract minimums apply. Room froze. Someone choked out a what the hell, just off mic. Counsel tried to reframe. There's likely room to negotiate, there's not, Ava replied. And then it happened. Her phone buzzed. A banner rolled across the top of her screen. Inbound wire confirmation, client, Quantum Layer Inc. Contract signed, $1.2M/12 Mo status. Active client note, let's scale. Ava stared at it, expression unchanged. Quantum Layer. Their biggest competitor, one they'd spent 2 years trashing in board decks. The one Miles once called a barn fire in a trench coat. She clicked dismiss. Miles noticed the flicker of movement on her end. Ava, what was that? She let the silence stretch, then smiled. Your metrics weren't founder tier either, she said, voice smooth as ice water. But your platform, mine now. She left the call before they could respond, walked outside. Sun in her eyes, the world quiet. And just like that, Ava Jordan, the duct tape, the glue, The background builder nobody ever invited to the cap table became the architect of their collapse. No press release, no tweet storm, just the clean sound of doors closing behind her and one opening wide ahead. Big thanks, you legends of the old office days. Subscribe to keep the switch-flicking chaos alive. Your ex-boss is shaking in their loafers.